scroll us to 15?
Drew, am I gonna be checking for all this stuff when they submit these to make sure
Yes.
it's all done?
Yes.
I know, you might have to log out of you and reconnect.
15. Well, paragraph 15. Paragraph 15.
Tell me when.
You're on 4,
Page 5 or 5?
Oh, I see the number now, sorry.
last page.
All right, there you go. Exclusive representation. If the exclusive box is checked on page 1, then we will initial this. So let's read it. By the way, you'd be surprised at how many questions that I get. It's amazing what happens. I'm just going to empower you all right now. I'm going to free you. Are you ready? Will you receive it? If I empower you, will you receive it?
Yes.
Okay. 3 people will embrace it. Okay, here we go. So many problems will be solved in your life if you took the time to read it. What would it look like is if instead of you panicked, instead of panicking and thinking, by the way, I don't mind taking your calls, call me. And what would it look like if you took an extra 15 or 20 seconds and read the line? Now, if you read the line and you don't know how to interpret the line, then that would be different, right? But take the time, because you have the power of the knowledge that is in front of you. Yes? This agreement shall be exclusive. We're going to get engaged. Broker will devote time and resources to assist the buyer in finding and acquiring the property in the expectation of being paid for the broker services. Buyer shall not enter into another agreement that's in conflict with this agreement. It's laying it out. This is the expectation. I'm going to work for you, and I'm going to get paid as a result of that. Compensation. The broker is entitled to compensation if the buyer acquires property during the representation period with or without broker involvement. So what might that look like?
Going to an open house.
Going to an open house and writing the offer with the listing agent. That's one. What's another? A new build. A new build. What's another? How about a FISBO? But for sale by owner. If they buy a FISBO, then you're owed a commission. Cancellation. Either the buyer or the broker may unilaterally. What's unilaterally mean? By yourself. Unilaterally cancel this agreement by giving the other 30-day written notice. If within 5 days after the effective date of the cancellation, the broker provides the buyer the list of properties for which there was broker involvement, the broker still may be entitled to compensation if the buyer purchases one of the more of the properties that are listed in that period. So what does that mean in English? Or Spanish?
Any home you show, any home you show, you can be still.
Yeah, so it's same thing with our listing agreements, right? Have you read our, we're going to go over listing agreements tomorrow in the team meeting, by the way, so if you're not already planning on coming to that, you want to. In our listing agreement, 11 o'clock in the morning, right, in the listing agreement it says, hey seller, if we part ways within 180 days of the expiration of this agreement, and I provide you a list of the buyers who showed the home, who previewed the home, I'm entitled to a commission. So now we're saying the same thing for our buyer. We're saying, buyer, I showed you 5 properties. We're going to part ways now. And if you buy any of those 5 properties that I provided you, then guess what? I'm owed a commission. Because I did my job. I did my job.
How would you know?
Well, a lot of things can happen.
Following up yourself and seeing if it's on the market?
Yeah.
Good time.
Yeah. It can also happen where I catch it most of the time is I am the listing agent. And I show the property to them, and then I receive an offer from another agent. Later that day, right? So, I know. It was kind of obvious. That's what happened.
During the open house.
Yeah. Huh?
It was during the open house.
We're doing the open house.
Even though that license?
Even though, yes, right? So, you give the properties, and now that solidifies you're gonna get paid on those properties. Does this make sense?
Yes.
Are you with me so far? Okay, so now let's go back. So now that's in the event.
So do you modify it on 4C? Because that's what I was doing, I was putting the 180 there. So would that extend the 30 days?
Item 4C, continuation of right to compensation for broker-involved properties. The broker shall be entitled to the compensation provided in 2E. If during the continuation period specified in 2E, buyer enters into an agreement to acquire property for which there was broker involvement, absolutely. The broker's right to the compensation pursuant to this paragraph shall only apply if prior to the expiration of this agreement or any extension thereof, the broker delivers the buyer with the written notice. So that applies.
So you can extend those 30 days to 180?
You cannot, on the buyer-broker agreement, you cannot extend it past 3 months. It's only 3 months.
No.
You're talking about this, yeah,
On the extension.
on the extension, could be 180. 4C,
Which line item?
On
this one right here.
4C, I'm sorry.
Oh, E4C.
Yeah, the calendar days, you could put in the 180 there,
30 days, no?
or whatever, I think.
Or you
But,
can put more than 30 days?
It could not be more than 3 months.
So,
oh, even there?
Even there, it cannot be more than 3 months. Each one you can only do for 3 months for the buyers, as of now.
So if they buy that same house you showed them 4 months after the agreement,
Then you're out.
Got it.
Then you're out.
and just do a new one? Like you start over?
You could do a new one and start over every 90 days, but you can only obligate them for 90 days at a time. That's it.
So,
Once that
No, but
expired, you can do
I think-
an addendum.
You can do it, I guess. I suppose you could do an extension addendum to extend the BRBC.
Be able to extend it for 20 days.
What now?
Oh, on that, on 4C, I'm still there. Because it says continuation period should be calendar days after representation period. So I was saying 180, if you put there 180, because that's where you do for the lease agreement.
You do. But according to Gov yesterday, does everybody know who Gov Hutchinson is?
Yes.
So Gov Hutchinson has been a CAR attorney for the last 40 years, and he's one of the lead forms attorneys. So yesterday when I was on with him, he said 90 days. So I could have misinterpreted that, and I'm happy to go back and clarify that. But my understanding is you cannot obligate the buyer for any more than 90 days. But I can clarify that.
so I'm trying to get more credit for myself. So let's say our agreement ends, right? But I showed them that property, I'd have an additional 90 days to where if they bought that property, I'd pay.
yes.
As long as you give them the
As long as
list.
you get the- yeah.
As long as you give them the list of properties that you showed them.
It could be a printout from the MLS, it could be a list.
Yeah, have them sign it, acknowledging the receipt. Or you can send it in an email and they can hit reply, received, if you want,
Is
right?
there a spot on like the cancellation that you can add it or something to?
There is,
Where
actually.
you can list it?
There is, yeah. Are we good on that? Any other questions, comments, concerns? Yes.
On here, the period is from July through December, that's 5 months, is that okay?
No,
So it should
it would
be
have to be 3 months.
10, so it should be a 10,
It should be 10.
but no,
That's correct.
So if somebody submits one of these and they put 4 months on there, do I ask them for like an addendum to fix it, or do you want me to ask them for a whole new one?
I think it'd be cleaner to get a whole new one.
Okay.
You technically probably could use an addendum, but it actually says right here on the form that if it exceeds 3 months, then the agreement is void.
Okay.
So I wouldn't want to chance that. I would rather just, I think it's cleaner just to have a new document. Philemon?
Yeah, I understood this form, but to know, but like, you know, I understand the 3 months, but I was reading, well, I got into the CAR class for this, and right there, they were saying like before August 17, if you do this.
If before what, August 17th?
17, and let's say by mistake, or if you had a previous one that was issued before that they were gonna validate it until, I think it's, I forgot the date, but I think it's January 21st, 2025.
If you
I
had a
have
prior agreement.
Per agreement before.
I have not heard that date.
Okay,
I don't know. I could have missed it, but I haven't heard that date.
okay, I think it's.
I don't know about that.
Can you
I do know that there's a form that you can, I would just recontract.
Yeah, that's what they were saying, that they were giving the choice to redo the contract.
Yeah.
I start with this one,
Mhm.
or if you had clients with the previous contract, that it was gonna, because we were doing it for a whole year, so it was gonna be valid until, January 21st.
Okay. I hadn't heard that. If I were you guys, I would just recontract them. The last thing we wanna do is get caught up in scarcity and trying to hold on to people. Because what are you gonna do if they don't want, right? Right? I mean, let's just come from value. Let's just bring value. You bring massive value. In the absence of value, we have to talk about money. Right? I'm gonna have this, the reason why Walmart has the rollback prices, right? Because who wants to go to Walmart? I will pay more not to go to Walmart. In fact, sometimes I'll pay my wife not to go to Walmart. I don't want, right? In absence of value, you have to take away the money.
Okay.
So if you're afraid to have that conversation with your client about money, then I would ask you to go internal and think about what maybe might be missing, and then let's talk about that. And let's fix it. Have the value so that you don't mind talking about the money. Can I get an amen? Can I get an amen? Amen. All right. B1, the property type. You're just going to, you can leave it blank, and that means that it's single-family residence. Oh, by the way, one of the things that you probably should know is for LLCs and corporations, the 3-month rule does not apply. So if you've got an investor client that you're working with, and you want to sign one of these bad boys for a year, you can.
Is there a box you check or something?
Well, no. It would just be, the name of the buyer would be the corporation or the LLC. And then you can do it. Not to exceed 2 years, by the way. That's a California contract law. It has nothing to do with real estate specifically. California contract law says that you cannot contract anyone for longer than 2 years. So that's a separate thing. So no more than 2 years. So if it's an LLC or a corporation or a partnership, then you can do it for as long as you want, as long as it doesn't exceed 2 years.
Single-family residence?
Single-family residence on B1.
Now,
Here's the thing.
if you do not
check the box, then you're not the agent.
here's what I mean by that.
Here's what I mean by that. If you don't say commercial, and they buy a commercial property, now what?
You're not the agent.
You're not the agent. You're not the agent. So if you haven't checked the box, so what does that mean we'll have to do now? You can check them off. And you could also have a conversation with your buyer. How many of us are having the buyer consultation meeting right off the bat? If you're not, I would implore you to investigate that and implement that into your business. The buyer consultation meeting in the beginning sets the stage of your professional relationship, and it is vital. In fact, I can tell you that every time that I have failed to do that in my business, I paid for it dearly. Even with my own sister-in-law. I took my sister-in-law and her wife for granted. and I just didn't have the buyer consultation. I had the listing consultation when I listed their home. And then when it came to the buyer part, I didn't. Guess what happened? They were disappointed. We ended up having to have a difficult conversation about halfway through the process because I missed some expectations that they had. Because I didn't sit down with them. By the way, why wouldn't I sit down every time I came over? They'd give me a big beer. Why wouldn't I have the conversation? Because I was being lazy. I could have a brewski with brewski and I could get it done right.
It's a comfort zone.
It was a comfort zone, right? So, and by the way, every time I can go back into my career and I can point it out, every time I didn't have a buyer consult, it didn't go as smooth. If it doesn't go as smooth, are you likely to get referrals? Now, this is my sister-in-law, so I'm able to make up, right, and help foster some of that relationship. But if it's not your sister-in-law, so you want to have that conversation. If you're having that conversation up front, these things can come up, and you can have that discussion. You got first-time home buyers. Are they likely going to buy something commercial?
No.
Right? If it's an investor. Might they?
Yeah.
Much more likely. Let's have the conversation. You're going to want to put in the location. Again, mandatory. So property type and location are mandatory to make the agreement valid.
What if the cities change later on?
Then you would want to do an addendum.
Do you have to do cities and cities and counties, or can you just do counties?
You can do counties. You can do counties.
You don't have to do either or, you can do just counties?
You can do just counties.
I have a question on the, it says, if you do not check in your non-agent except commercial land, what is, what does that mean?
Thank you. This is why I put it on there so that would happen. With commercial real estate, all of this is not required. With commercial real estate, all of this is not required. Commercial's a whole other animal. We're not even required to disclose agency in commercial. I don't live that way. So you are all required to, and as far as the law is concerned, none of this applies. So you don't really have to. Now, CAR legal does say, do it. Just because something is not required doesn't mean you shouldn't still do it. Yeah? Why do we have all these forms?
Actually,
Yeah, right? Or just Angie and I just being jerks. Where every day she kicks her file back just because she gets a power trip over it.
Yeah.
I believe it. No. Angie wants you to get paid. We all want you to get paid. It's for protection. What we don't want to have happen is we don't want you to get paid, have a file that's not correct, and then we all get sued. Uh-oh. Right? And by the way, the lawsuits are out there. I've got 4 that I'm dealing with right now.
What kind?
Huh?
For what?
Oh my gosh, stupid things. Really, really stupid things. I just won one last month, by the way, or 2 months ago. I just won one in small claims court. She was suing us for $12,500 for a property she didn't buy. That the seller canceled and gave her money back, and she refused to pick up the deposit in escrow. She bought chickens and chicken coops for the property she didn't own and put it on a credit card, and then we needed to pay the interest for the credit card and the chicken coops and the chickens. So my point in this is that can we all agree that the morale of the country is down?
Yes.
The morale, just everything is sort of down. So what happens when people are running scarce and they're broke? Let's face it, right? People out right now are broke. what happens, right? Morale decreases, and then people start to scratch for every dime from everywhere they can, right? In fact, whenever Jason comes to me, this is not a real thing because he doesn't ever come to me complaining, but whenever Jason comes to me complaining about something, what's going to be my answer?
Go away.
Sounds like we need to get some more listings. What can we do to help support you, Jason, in getting some more listings? Right, because more listings solves all the problems. Does it not?
Yes.
Do you feel a little bit better about paying your bills when you have more listings?
Yes.
Yeah?
Amen.
I've lost them. I don't know what's happened there. But, C and D are not required. C and D are not required. And you could put something on C, right? See, the additional buyer preferences and priorities. You could, your buyer could put something in there and they not buy that product. It does not make the document invalid. You're good. It's okay. So they could put, I want 4 bedrooms, I want 3 bathrooms, I want to be on the west side, I want a pool, and they could end up buying east side, 3 bedroom, 2 bath. And it's okay. It doesn't make the document invalid. Amount of compensation. Now, here comes the fun part. Whatever you put in here, whatever number that you put in this blank right here, you cannot receive more. You cannot receive more than whatever number is listed here. So let's say that you put 2.5% because that's what you feel your value is, and you want to work for 2.5% for your buyer, and you've agreed on that, and so you put 2.5% in the blank. And then you go to the MLS, and they end up finding a property that's maybe harder to move than most, and so the seller's offering a 3% commission to the buyer broker. You don't get the 3%. You get the 2.5% because that's what you put in your agreement. You follow? So put 3%. Yeah. And you can make an agreement with your buyer, but if you're going to pay it, I'll do it for the 2.5%.
Can you amend it?
Yeah, you can just amend it.
So you can amend it for lower in case, like,
Yeah.
just say you're negotiating and
Yeah.
you don't have enough, or whatever the case is.
Well, let's say that I'm negotiating a deal, and in order to make it work, there's not enough money on the table for the seller to make it all work, so I'm going to take some money off the commission to make the deal come together. Sure. You just can't go up. You just can't go up.
Oh, you can't
go up. You can't go up.
So if you're doing land, then you better put like 5.
You better put 5 or 8 or 12 or something.
Right.
Yeah, right. You better put something more than. Right? And then I'm still checking on this with CAR, but I was talking to George about this. I feel comfortable putting the 199 here. Yeah, where it says and if any and it has a dollar sign, $199. I'm okay with that. Angie, do you see something?
Buyers are supposed to use a commission agreement.
This is the commission agreement.
That's what I'm asking. I thought we were only supposed to use the actual commission agreement for the buyers.
Because that's the old days. And by old days, I mean today and yesterday.
It's going to be gone, that form is gone. It's going to be gone, that form.
Yeah. Well, there's going to be no more commission agreement. In fact, I don't even think you can get it today.
Really?
I think. There was a form yesterday that I tried to get. I couldn't. I think that was it. So yeah, the commission agreement's gone. This is it. By the way, Ridgecrest MLS, tomorrow, August 1st, the commission fields are gone in the MLS. Just so you know. Okay? Gavar, the 7th. SRAR, the 12th. So just know that just be ready. Okay? How are we we're going to talk about that tomorrow.
Any questions so far?
You said the 199 can go there?
And to be determined. But as of right now, I'm comfortable with that.
Okay.
I just don't have a response yet from CAR on whether that's okay. But I think it is. I'm okay with it. Payments received by the broker from seller or others. If the broker receives the compensation from the seller or others, who could others be? It could be anything. It could be anything, couldn't it, really?
Could be land.
So they're covering all the bases. If you're receiving money from anybody, for broker's representation of the buyer, the amount shall be credited against the buyer's obligation to pay the broker. The broker shall not receive any amount in excess of 2E1. So there it is. So if your buyer is asking you, you're putting in 3, but I don't want to pay you 3, you can say the goal will be, buyer, the goal is going to be that the seller pay it. Now, while we're here, let's just pause and have a little brief discussion around the settlement. Is that okay with you?
Yeah.
I want to make sure that we have clarity on this issue. What was the settlement about? Disclosure of what? Disclosure of what? Compensation to the buyer broker. There was a handful of states in the middle of the country that were not in compliance, meaning that in their listing agreement, it did not disclose to the seller that a buyer broker might be in cooperation and may get paid from the funds that they're paying the listing broker. Okay? For decades, we as a listing firm would receive the commission. We would make a marketing decision. The best interest of our seller and the best interest of getting this property sold is to cooperate with other brokers. So I'm going to cooperate and I'm going to put it in the multiple listing service, and I'm going to pay out of my 6% commission. I'm going to pay, or 5%, or 4.5%, or whatever you negotiated. I'm going to pay the buyer's broker out of my commission. That's how it's been for decades. Yes?
Yes.
This, by the way, this whole thing is a conversation that Zillow started. Let me be clear. Zillow is your enemy. Coldwell Banker, not your enemy. Century 21, not your enemy, not your competition. EXP, not your competition. The person sitting next to you, not your competition. Your competition is the company that wants to take you out. Let that land. They want to take over the real estate industry. They started the conversation with homeowners around the country because we were stupid. And when I say we, I don't mean me. I was a part of it, right? Because I'm a part of CAR and AAR. We didn't do a good enough job of protecting our information, and we allowed Zillow to come in and market our listings to our potential customers, and then we paid for our own customers back.
So how can we get rid of Zillow?
Too strong.
Take the real estate.
2 years ago, Gary Keller called up the CEO of Zillow. CEO, I don't know his name. I don't care to know his name. By the way, from now on, we'll just refer to this company as the Snake.
Yeah, that's cool.
So he calls up the CEO of the Snake and says, "Hey, I think that we should probably first of all, I'm the co-founder of the largest real estate company in the world, and you're the CEO of the largest marketing online presence for real estate in the world. Maybe we should be in business together. How about this? How about we partner? And you can be our marketing firm, and we'll be your realtors. And let's take over the world together." And Gary was so convinced that this relationship would evolve that he actually put the CEO on the calendar for family reunion to take the stage with him, to have this conversation openly in front of all of us. Do you know what the CEO of Snake said? No, thank you. I don't need you. How's that make you feel? the next time you want to write a check to Zillow for a lead that already belonged to you in the first place. Several states in the middle of the country were not in compliance. They didn't have disclosure of the buyer-broker compensation in their agreements. They sued the state of Missouri to start out with. Now, I don't know who started that lawsuit, but I'm going to guess it starts with a Z. Now, it wasn't them that was on the document, was it? But I'm sure that started the conversation, right? And they sued the state of Missouri, and they lost, meaning the state of Missouri lost, yes? And they had to pay a bunch of money. And then those people they felt empowered, and so what did they do? They sued RE/MAX and Keller Williams and the real estate firms, and then that wasn't going very good. So then what did they do? They sued the National Association of Realtors, and that includes everybody. There's talk around what is the National Association of Realtors really worth to us. So I'm going to tell you, I'm different than a lot. And it's probably because I served as the president of our board 3 different times, and I was a CAR director, so I have a first-hand look at what they actually do for us. Do you know that it's not important for me to get political and tell you which presidents. Certain presidents that take office every so often are trying to get rid of the Mortgage Deduction Act. Do you know what that is? Every time you make your mortgage payment, some of it goes to interest and some of it goes to principal. You're allowed to write off all of the interest up to $30,000 every year. The party that's for the people always wants to get rid of that. And what does the National Association of Realtors do every single time? We fight and we combat and we win. That doesn't help just realtors. That helps the public. So what are you paying for? You're paying for advocacy. You're paying for a lobby effort. They're by the way, the largest lobby effort next to the NRA. Switch the things around. Right? So it's important that NAR is stable and we stay attached to them. This talk about leaving. Give me a break. That's the last thing we should do. In fact, we should lock arms and get stronger. Not let the Z take us out and disarm, right? Are you with me? Okay? So, the crux of the lawsuit was disclosure. It isn't about compensation. It's about disclosure of compensation. The media is out there in the world telling the public, realtors are going to make less. Have you heard this?
Oh, yeah.
I hear it on all of them. Realtors are going to make less. Realtors' commissions are going to drop. Okay, here's what's changed in reality. Well, let me ask you this question before I go there. Is it in the best interest of a seller to pay the buyer-broker commission?
Yes.
Tell me why. Tell me more about that.
Too many buyers are gonna have the funds.
Buyers won't have the funds.
Agents are going to show up.
Household?
Agents aren't going to work for free.
Nobody's gonna show you home?
Nobody's going to show the home.
Part of your marketing.
Part of the marketing. Do buyers all of a sudden on August the 18th have more money than they did on August 17th? They're just as broke as they were before. In fact, in this new wonderful economy that we find ourselves in, they're even more broke. And now we think that they're going to pay, all of a sudden they've got the money in their savings account and they're going to pay the commission. Okay, so let's say that happens, which it doesn't happen, right? Now, who wins? So the buyer who has the cash is going to win. Over, right? All we did is we separated the haves and have-nots even further.
Discriminated.
We don't discriminate anymore. We don't discriminate. All we did was go like this, right? Because if you've got a first-time home buyer, they don't have the cash, and you've got somebody who does have the cash, they're going to win.
Who loses?
The guy without any cash. And the seller loses because the seller doesn't He doesn't have multiple offers. He doesn't have as many, he or she doesn't have as many people come to the table, right? So, and let's face it, how many of the buyers that we're all working with every day have enough money for the down payment, the closing costs, and the buyer broker commission? It's a very few. So the reality of the situation is, if that really was the new world order, buyers pay their own broker. That's the way it's going to be, by golly. Okay, Mr. Seller, let's do that. Let's see how it works out for us. And we put the property on the market, what's going to happen? Nothing, just like an overpriced listing would be. So our job is to coach our client into helping them understand this concept, which is going to be what? They're going to pay the buyer broker. Now, I ask you, what has changed?
When we disclose it.
The conversation, because by the way, we already disclosed it. Now we have 7 new documents. Now we have, our job is harder because we're fighting against the media. That's what's changed. What's changed is our jobs got harder. And I love that. Don't you? Because what's that mean? That broker call that I just got off of from this morning, all those other brokers literally are looking to me for the answer. What? When did I become the... I'm not the guy. I didn't do any of this.
So we're going to be dealing with them. And that's,
Yeah, and they're shaking in their boots. So it's going to be hard. Anything that's easy isn't worth it, though, is it, Kenny? Right? It's going to be hard. We're going to have to learn to coach. That's why we're going to... JD is going to be doing dialogue practice around this every day. So it's open, by the way. His dialogue practice in the morning is now open to everybody around this, and we're going to practice these conversations. We're going to be the very best educated in the industry, yes? The more we learn to have this conversation with our clients, the better that we're going to be. While all the other brokers are shaking in their boots, I'm having low-level conversations, guys. It's that the buyers won't sign the document. What will we do? Yeah, and the seller won't pay 6% commission either. Oh, wait. If you know how to coach them, they will.
Right.
Okay, so I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page as far as this settlement is concerned. The only thing that really has effectively changed is our jobs got a little harder and we have 7 new documents. The seller is still going to pay the commission because the market demands it. Last I checked, we do live in a free economy. Well, kinda. Right? Right? No? Maybe. Okay, maybe. I don't know, maybe in November we will again. I don't know. All right, and then we have the one we already talked about, which is the E34C, the continued right to payment. I'm going to get clarity on whether we can put 180 days in there or 90 or whatever, but I'm pretty sure Gov said 3 months is the most, but I will triple check that. Okay, and I'll get back to you on that. Cancellation rights, non-exclusive, meaning it's open, right? Non-exclusive, okay? So that cancellation is effective upon receipt. Or you can check the box and put however many days. For exclusive, the cancellation is effective 30 days after the receipt. Better. For exclusive. Right?
So we have to get a written agreement where they could tell us that they don't want to work with us, and then 30 days after.
Because remember, it says that in paragraph 15. Remember when we went back to paragraph 15 and we read it because we checked the exclusive box. So then that took us to paragraph 15. In paragraph 15, it says either party can cancel unilaterally, meaning by themselves. So I can fire you and you can fire me at any time, but 30-day notice. If we're in an exclusive relationship. If we're going steady. Right? All right, time to deliver buyer the personal and financial information within 5 days from the execution of the agreement. And then you would want to attach the BFPI. And I failed to attach that, you guys, I'm sorry.
Is that gonna be required? But that's also.
That's only if you, okay, so it's not required.
No requirement.
It's not required. And yet CAR legal team did advise that we do get it. Because don't we want to make sure, like, let's have the conversation with our buyer. What if they don't have the money? What if they physically come, Carol, you want to buy the home, we don't have the money to pay you. I want to know that they don't have the money to pay me. And by the way, all of my buyers, practically 95% of them don't have the money to pay me. Right? Does it mean I'm not going to represent them? Of course I'm going to represent them. Because I'm going to negotiate on properties where the seller's going to pay the compensation.
How do you find
Round and round we go, right?
How do you find the compensation with the other realtor?
We're going to go over that tomorrow on the listing. By the way, guys, a lot of this stuff is not really actually figured out 100%.
No.
Right? We're all learning as we go. Because we think it's going to go one way.
Yeah.
And I bet when we get in the trenches, dimes the donuts, it's going to change. Right. I mean, we're going to, when we get in, start doing it, it's going to be, wait, this doesn't work. We got to do something different.
Changes.
You have something you want to ask? Okay.
Changes will happen.
Yeah, change is going to happen. Right. So right now we're tomorrow Garrett's going to teach you how to create a landing page in 45 seconds in Command. So you can put a link in agent remarks. You can put a link in agent remarks. You can put a link in. You say it. Agent remarks. It can't be in public remarks. It has to be in agent remarks. You can put a link in there that goes to a landing page, and the landing page can have broker compensation.
So you can have a link to it?
In agent remarks, you can have a link to a landing page that provides the compensation.
I think it's time to recruit other agents.
Yes, right? In 2000, 2002, 3, 4, right around in there, we used to, by the way, I'm not agent, I'm still very young. I started real estate when I was 5. So I know it doesn't look like I should be in real estate in 2000. In those days, we actually did negotiate our commission with the RPA. And that's what we're going to be doing again. It went away for 20 years. By the way, for good cause, I think, right? Because we were putting our fiduciary obligation ahead of money. And now we're not. Now we're saying we're going to be every part of that conversation. So now we're negotiating our commission along with the offer. And that's why the other brokers are shaking their boots, because they don't know how this is going to work. Well, it's going to work just like it did 25 years ago. I'm going to make an offer, and I'm going to say, pay me, or we walk. And Carlos is going to go to the seller, and he's going to say, we got to pay him, or they're going to walk.
Pay them.
And the seller's going to say, pay him to try to get it less. Mark my words, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't want to get too off topic here. I was told, I don't know how true this is, that in the new listing agreement, you can only put on the contract the amount of commission that we're going to keep as a listing agent. So my question is, if we did a landing page and we said 2.5%, there's nothing that's tying the seller, and there's no written commitment from them. How would you?
100%. That's the very conversation I just had this morning. We're going to go over that tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Like that's leading in. Everybody comes back.
Everybody has to be here.
You got to come back tomorrow. And then you notice in G. And then you notice in G2 that it says buyer doesn't have the money. They can't pay me. They don't have the money. But I'm still going to enter this agreement anyway, because we're going to look for properties where the seller is going to pay for the compensation. Again, what has changed? Nothing. Nothing. See, this is why we can be secure. We don't have to be scared. Because the market is still speaking. Until such time the market shifts and the buyers all of a sudden have a bunch of money laying around, then the conversation will change and we'll have to change with it. We'll have to pivot. just like we always do. But for right now, the market is what the market is, and the buyers don't have the money, so the sellers will have to pay, or they won't sell their property. Fill in.
Yeah, the next line, it says, with the different loan products, so we're respecting the loan products.
So, good news. All of the loan products have said that they will not include broker compensation in the concession cap. So does everybody realize that we have a concession cap?
Yeah.
First of all, what's a concession?
Closing costs?
Is it? Is the amount of money that the seller allows the buyer to have, like to use like for closing costs?
Right, so closing costs,
Credit for,
home repair,
Repairs,
to lower point.
Points,
Buy
interest
down.
rate.
points.
buy down.
I didn't pay Capital One on time, and now I have a collection, and so in order for me to qualify for the loan, I need that money because I don't have it, and if you want me to buy your house, you gotta pay. It happened to me one time. I represented somebody who, they had to have this, I had to put that in the offer. Pay $8,000 to Capital One so we can qualify and get the house. Yes! Right, like, so all of this cannot exceed 6%.
And all products?
All, well, on, yes, pretty much. Let's just say that. Yeah, VA is 4%, but it doesn't ever get that high. So now, the buyer broker compensation does not count toward these concessions. When we go over the RPA next week, I'll show you where it says in the residential purchase agreement now there's going to be another line item for compensation to the broker and concessions. Now it's broken up into two different. Remember in the old contract it just said on line item 6 it just said additional items here. This is where you put seller to pay buyer's reoccurring non-reoccurring because it costs not to exceed $12,000 whatever, right? So now that's gone, and now we actually have a column for concessions, and then below it a column for broker compensation. And so the reason that's in there is because at the time that this was drafted, VA was the last one holding out, and then they've now lifted it.
So how are you gonna deal with somebody that's VA?
VA is now lifted as well. So now they're allowing buyers to pay their broker, and they're allowing the financing of it.
That one will probably disappear eventually, is kind of what it sounds like?
Yeah, I think we're just like, as a market, it's probably just gonna be, that's gonna be the new normal. And lenders and underwriters and everybody's just gonna get on board with it, and it's just gonna be a part of the deal. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if the conventional product didn't allow for you financing the commissions directly, without the seller having to pay it. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if that's not coming down the pipe real soon. As an option. Yeah, we'll loan you the $12,000 on top of your mortgage to pay Clara for the deal. It's probably coming. They're already talking about it.
On the buyer side, when you ask for closing cost credit, can you specify 3% for closing cost and 3%?
You will, because there's two different line items. So you'll say 3% closing costs, and then the next line you'll say pay the buyer broker. 3%. Advisories. The broker compensation advisory. You have a copy of the broker compensation advisory. Yes or yes?
Yes.
Do you? Did I give it to you?
Yes.
I thought I did.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a very,
Oh, no, yeah, I saw that. I was looking for the front.
Broker compensation advisory, all this is doing is disclosing that it's taking 2 pages to tell everybody that commissions are negotiable. They're not locked into stone. They are set by each individual broker, and they are negotiable with each individual broker. Bottom line. Okay? If you want some sleeping material tonight, take it home. Go through and read that. It'll help you fall asleep. That's I'm not going to spend much time on it. That was spectacular. Okay. Compensation to the broker on 4, the amount of the rate of real estate commission is not fixed by law. Again, we're just like pounding this in the ground because this is the crux of the settlement. Okay? Real estate commissions include all compensation and fees to the broker and are fully negotiable. Again, we're saying the broker's right to the compensation on 4B. The broker shall be entitled to compensation specified in 2E1 from the buyer if during the representation period or any extension the buyer is into an agreement to purchase, lease, or otherwise acquire the property described in 2B, and the seller thereafter completes the transaction or is prevented from doing so by default. So then we're going to go in and talk about the non-exclusive representation and the broker involvement. And we're going to talk about the exclusive representation of the buyer acquisition. And then we go all the way down to line item number 4B4. This is what describes what broker involvement is. So with all the questions of what does it mean to be involved as the broker? It lays it out right here. The buyer physically entered and was shown the property by the broker. By the way, did you guys know that it is law that you step foot physically in any house that you sell? Did you know that?
Wait, what's that again?
You cannot sell a house that you have not stepped foot in.
At any point?
At some point, you have to have stepped foot in the home you're selling.
Overline offers.
So for those of you that and I know that nobody in this office is doing this. We don't do this. But for any of those RE/MAX agents out there that call up the listing agent in Ridgecrest and say, "Will you show my buyer your listing for me?"
Oh,
Sure. Damn you. Damn you. That's what I say. Right? That's lazy. It's incompetent. And you're not properly representing your client, and you're actually breaking the law, and you're being unethical. Because you are obligated to step foot in any home that you sell. You're not allowed to sell it outside unseen.
What about this agent that sends
This land,
clients to an open house, they see it and they
Yeah, same thing. Okay, go to the open house, check it. Kitty's got an open house on Saturday on K-12. Go see it, come back, and I'll write it. They're still obligated to go preview the home.
But that could be inspection, that could be final
Yeah.
walkthrough.
You have to now, according to this, that actually we just took it up a notch, didn't we? Because now we're saying, as a part of my exclusive duty, my involvement is that I'm going to physically show you the property.
What if
As
there's 2 agents on a file? Like 3. Do all 3 have to visit it?
No. You know why? Why? Why would that be the same?
one broker.
All these clients are mine,
Yeah.
right? It all goes to the broker, and you are the representatives of the broker. So it's okay if one of you goes on behalf of the team.
I have another question. This doesn't apply to me, at least not yet, but some people have like showing assistants, things like that. How would that work if the showing assistant's not on the contract?
I think it would work the same way as if somebody on JD's team went and showed the property. Right? Because ultimately they're representing the broker.
This doesn't apply to vacant land, right?
It does not apply to vacant land. It does not apply to vacant land. But that's another lawsuit that we're in right now.
It is?
Yeah, we actually settled, right? Our agent had to pay $3,300 to the buyer recently because the buyer bought the wrong piece of land. Now the agent says, and it's proven to me that they sent an email with the parcel map to the buyer, and the buyer acknowledged receipt. The buyer acknowledged by signing an escrow that they got a copy of the plot map from the title search. But yet they say that when they went to the property with the agent the agent had them at the wrong property. And the seller is saying, I trusted that agent, because this agent represented both the buyer and the seller. I trusted that agent to be my advocate for my property and know where it is. So how do we get out untangled? Now, I don't think that they did anything all that necessarily wrong. And if the buyer did truly misunderstand which parcel they bought, that's a problem. So the agent had to give settled at the $5,000. The seller was going to give $2,200, and the agent had to give $3,300, and the buyer was happy. So know which parcel you're selling. For the love of Pete, please. Tim.
Would it have been just acceptable to say I will show vacant land?
Yes.
This is the parcel map, you go find it.
Yes.
It's better.
You could, but then, yeah.
Use
Because
the
most of the
GPS.
time, nothing's, it was probably a Cal City land for that price.
It was.
There's no type of survey out there.
No.
Use of those.
Right. Right. And by the way, you could have a BIW. What's a BIW?
A waiver.
An inspection, a buyer inspection waiver. So you could actually put on there, I recommend you get a survey, and you're waiving that right. And then I might even put in another disclosure. I don't know where this is at. You're buying this knowing you know where it's at.
The BIA has the buyer inspection advisory.
Yeah.
The inspections it recommends.
It recommends the survey.
That's how you verify plot lines. So survey is in there.
Right.
The BIA has a section for
The
surveys.
buyer inspection advisory. Yeah, exactly. Okay, I've got some questions on the chatting thing. To be able to claim a compensation after the agreement expires, we need to provide a list of properties. That is correct. Gloria. Sonia, what about calendar days? Can you extend there? I don't understand the question. You can extend it, yes. Hillary, what is 3 months? You cannot, Hillary, you cannot obligate the buyer for more than 90 days, for more than 3 months. Can someone email a sample? Good idea, Leslie. Good idea. Okay, we missed that. Okay.
Sample of what?
A sample of what I'm going over with you guys.
Is it free?
It is. It's on the screen, but they don't have it in front of them. You know, you guys have it in front of you where you can take notes. Victoria. Good job, Victoria. That's why we love you, because you gave them what they wanted. Will there be a YouTube? Yes. So, Ivan, in my foolishness, I didn't hit record. So, I told you I was going to record this and put it on the YouTube channel, and then guess what? I got all excited, and I forgot to hit record, so next week we'll do it again. Start all over. No. Next week we're gonna have a rerun, and we'll record that one. How's that?
In case you missed something.
You did record it? You know what? Can we just say that do we not have the most awesome team on the planet here? I mean, come on, they've got my back every which way. They probably knew. Drew's teaching. All forces in. He needs all the support he can get. All right. Continuation of the right to compensation. We already went over that. The timing of the compensation. The compensation is payable upon the completion of any resulting transaction and through escrow. The broker shall be entitled to the compensation whether any escrow resulting from this agreement closes during or after the representation period. If the acquisition is prevented by default of the buyer upon buyer's default, or if the acquisition is prevented by a party to the transaction other than the buyer. When the buyer collects damages or obtains specific performance by suit, some or otherwise, if the damages are recovered, they got to pay us. Any questions on any of that stuff? We are on page 2 of 5 on D. Yes.
Question. Was it on the page? So on page 1 at the bottom, where it says buyer does not have sufficient funds to pay the broker.
Okay.
By checking that, does that like exclude us from trying to sue a buyer for
Yeah.
compensation?
Yeah, it
Because
would.
we acknowledge that they didn't
Yeah,
have
we
it anyway.
acknowledge, you said you were
Okay.
broke, I said, okay, I'll represent you anyway.
Got
That
it.
means that I'm gonna go to small claims court to get my money, and the judge is gonna look at me and go, you knew they didn't have any money, what are you doing?
So basically, just compliance once this form and then.
It's all about disclosure,
Yes. But
right?
at
It's
the
all
end of the
about
day, we
showing
have
that
to
we
know.
had the conversation with the buyer, and now we know the buyer's broke, and we're gonna do it anyway.
So we're-
Because by the way, we already do that.
Right.
We represent buyers every single day that are broke.
Yeah.
Do we not?
Yeah.
What's the difference?
What about for referrals, like out-of-state referrals? Do you still have to make them?
No, you would just do the referral agreement.
Nothing changed.
Nothing changed there. Good point, though.
You want to make sure that they sign the buyer broker on the other side then, right?
Yeah, you want to make sure they've signed the buyer broker on the other side. I mean, it's going to be August 17th. It's law everywhere, right? It's not just California. It's everywhere. So that's a national thing. So they got to do it no matter where they're at.
Are they gonna be?
Another thing to understand is there's no more broker-to-broker sharing of commission. You understand that, right? I thought that's a point that I realized was not really understood earlier today. So I want to make sure, like, there's no broker. Kenny cannot share his commission with Maxie.
Oh,
There's no broker-to-broker
Yeah,
sharing
yeah.
of commission anymore.
got it.
That's out. Are you following me?
How was that happening before? I never.
That's how we did business. We did business that way for 30 years.
No, I mean,
Keller Williams, Antelope Valley Ridgecrest collected 6% commission,
that way.
right? And then we said through an agreement, through our reciprocal
No more.
agreement through the
No
multiple
more.
listing service, that if Maxi Case brought the buyer, that we would give a certain amount of that commission
Not anymore.
to her, right? Not anymore. That's no longer a thing. There's no more, we don't share the commission. The seller or the buyer pays the buyer broker, and the seller pays the listing agent. Understood?
Yes.
And it's semantics, but I think it's important that you understand that distinction. Payments received from others less than buyer compensation. So that on G, broker and buyer should discuss whether it would be beneficial to include a term in any offer buyer makes obligating the seller to pay the broker directly or through escrow for some or all the compensation the buyer owes the broker. There it is. If the seller does not pay as contractually required, the buyer assigns to the broker as a third-party beneficiary any right buyer has to pursue the seller for that compensation. Questions on anything there? It's pretty straightforward. H, disclosure of payments to the broker. Broker independently or through escrow will disclose the final compensation that the broker receives. Again, it's all about disclosure. It isn't that we can't get paid. It's just simply, and we don't even have to change how we get paid. The slight differential. No more sharing between brokers. That's the slight differential. Otherwise, the seller is still probably going to pay the buyer broker through escrow. Agency relationships on 6. Oh, we probably should talk about 5. 5, the cancellation of the buyer's representation agreement. Either the buyer or the broker may cancel this agreement by giving written notice at any time to the other within the time specified in 2F. Remember that 2F said that if it was a non-exclusive, meaning open, right, that it was effective upon receipt of the cancellation, or you could write a number of days in if you wanted to. Yes?
Yes.
Or yes?
Yes.
Yeah, for yes.
Okay. On the exclusive, it's a 30-day written notice.
Question. Going back, is a referral sharing
A referral
commission?
is sharing commission,
So
but that
that's
would
the
be
only
the
time it's
exception to the
accepted.
rule.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, that would be the exception to the rule because the referral agent is not a party to the contract.
Got it.
The referral agent is simply providing a name and a phone number and information and passing the client on to Juan. And now Juan has the client. And now Juan is the party to the contract with the buyer, not me. Does that make sense?
Yes.
All right. Broker shall still be entitled to compensation. Just because we canceled the deal doesn't mean I still don't get paid. During the representation period or the continuation period specified in 2E, the buyer acquires property for which there was broker involvement, provided broker delivers to buyer a written list of those properties, which we've already gone over. Agency relationships. We're acknowledging. The buyer acknowledges that they have received an agency disclosure. Remember, that was the very first document we went over today? Remember that that document does not solidify the agency relationship. It simply discloses that there is such thing as agency in the state of California. And 3 types apply. And in all 3 instances, we owe a fiduciary obligation and utmost care. Right? Okay. Talking about 6B, possible dual agency with the seller. This is disclosing to them that we might represent the seller also. And that's okay. And if we do, we're going to have them sign the BRBC, the possibility of representing more than one buyer or seller. What's the significance of that form? We've been using that form now for about 5 years. What's the significance of that form?
Disclosure, let them know that.
You are not my only client.
What?
You're not my only client.
You're not my only client because the fiduciary obligation would obligate me. Right? If Philemon, in fact, when I say me, I quite literally mean me. As your broker, if Philemon got a buyer, the rest of you couldn't have one. Philemon's turn this month. You better hurry up and close it, Philemon, because I got one burning over here. Right? But by having them sign the BRBC, we're disclosing, and not only are we disclosing, they're actually signing, authorizing us to have other clients. They're saying, it's okay, Drew, or it's okay, Drew, you can have other clients. So that's vital. That's the significance of that document. 7, properties excluded from representation. Advisory regarding buyers signing multiple buyer representation agreements. Buyer shall inform the broker in writing if the buyer has signed any other representation agreements and whether they're exclusive or non-exclusive. So what if the buyer signed an exclusive with Christie, and now they're here and they want to sign something with you?
You need the cancellation.
You need a cancellation of that BRBC with Christie, right? 30 days, right?
Before.
I could have it with a different agent as long as it doesn't conflict with the same properties.
But the problem is that in that exclusive, Christie gets paid no matter what. So that's okay, but they also now owe Christie a commission if they buy with you.
No, but well, we're just saying if they're in different areas. Like let's say if they were represented for the San Fernando Valley, and I'm representing them
Yeah,
on the
you could do
Central Valley.
that. You could do that, yeah,
they
sure.
could have it.
Sure, so fair point, Philemon. So they're in the valley, and they're with a Remax agent in the valley, exclusive, and then they're in the Antelope Valley, exclusive with Philemon. That's okay, because in the BRBC, they identified in that second section, San Fernando Valley, Antelope Valley.
What if you
No, but they were both
county?
county.
But they specified which area.
Cities,
So if you put the city
And
and
the
the county,
county?
is
Right.
they're the same
So
county but
instead-
they're different cities.
Instead of county, now we're gonna do city.
Cities, yeah.
That's the only way of legal.
Yeah, right, to differentiate the two. Yes.
Now, in that same scenario you just played out there in an agreement, they want to sign an agreement with one of us now. Do we then have to see the cancellation and wait 30 days, or can we enter that agreement immediately? Because they have the continuation or whatever. Or would that only be on the properties that they had chosen?
I would say, does everybody understand the question?
No.
He's asking, cancellation has been processed, given to me, and it doesn't take place, it's effective for 30 days. Like I'm not released for 30 days. So now, does Clara have to wait for day 31 before she can enter into an agreement with them, or can she do an exclusive right now? I think she can do an exclusive right now because it's only to the properties that were spelled out. But I will get clarity.
So they show different properties doesn't matter?
I'm thinking, because it canceled with you,
Yeah, we didn't.
Carlos, you're not showing me the properties that I really want. Here's the cancellation, but then you give me a list of the properties that you showed me, and if I buy any one of those, then you get paid. And then I move on. I have to get clarity on that.
Is confirmation of getting those properties, like, you know, how you have people set up on emails, and it says view property, is that considered?
No, because in our broker involvement section, yeah, because in our broker involvement section that we had on the last page, it says that part of what we did was show them the property physically.
It also says virtually too.
Yeah.
Virtually, but sending them an email is not virtual showing.
Virtual is like a video and.
Right? Buyer shall disclose to the broker if another broker showed the buyer such property virtually or in person, or wrote an offer on, or otherwise acted on the buyer's behalf for such property. Buyer may owe compensation to that broker if the buyer purchased such property. There you go. If the buyer has signed an exclusive buyer representation agreement with another broker that has not expired or been terminated, buyer may owe compensation to that broker if the buyer purchases such property, even if that other broker had no involvement. So that's where that procuring cause comes from. Buyer shall disclose in paragraph 2D any property for which the buyer is obligated to pay another broker. Any questions on anything there?
Well, quick question, on that one, on number 3, in that same question, it says has been terminated, but during that 30-day process, it's not considered terminated, right?
Correct.
So you would have to essentially wait to sign it.
Correct. So during that 30-day process, or in that 30 days, it's not terminated.
So basically,
What's the benefit of it?
so basically, like, let's say, if somebody showed up a property, and now that property, they dropped the price like $30,000, the client now is in contract with me, for example, wants me to show that property, and I said, you know what, just go back to the original person that showed it to you. and
Because they're gonna get paid.
They're gonna get paid, right?
Yeah, and you're not.
Okay.
You're not. Now remember, that's only if the agent actually gave them a list of the properties.
How do we know?
So, right.
You know?
I don't know why that 30
I
days
said, how
is
is
in
it
there.
that they lie, like, oh, nobody showed me anything, I don't have an agreement. Buyers and
Then
buyers.
then they're going, yeah, then they would be obligated to pay the commission, right? It's just like, a couple times I had sellers sign 2 listing agreements. So they were already listed with another company and they didn't tell me. And then they listed with our company as well. And so the other company was trying to tell me that my listing agreement was not valid. Yes, it is. They owe 2 commissions. It doesn't make mine invalid. They just have to pay twice. So you cancel yours. I'm not going to cancel mine. Why do I have to be the one to cancel? Limitation on broker representation if a property is excluded in paragraph 2D. During the time buyer is obligated to compensate another broker, the broker is not obligated to assist the buyer with respect to that property. And the buyer shall not owe the broker any compensation. 8, broker authorizations and obligations. The broker agrees to exercise reasonable effort and due diligence to achieve the purposes of this agreement, and the broker will assist by, number 1, locating and presenting selected properties to the buyer, presenting offers to the buyer, assisting buyer in negotiating for acceptance of such offers and as applicable terms and conditions following such acceptance, and facilitating the escrow process. By the way, you guys, if you're having any kind of difficulty in discerning what your value is, going through this document will help you. It's outlining what you will be doing for them as a client. It's bringing value. It doesn't matter. Burger King and McDonald's. They both are fast food. They both serve burgers. Does that mean that one of their value is diminished over the other? Should Burger King just close its doors because the Golden Arches has the same? Because the Golden Arches has burgers too? No, they have their own value proposition. They're the home of the Whopper. Right? McDonald's is the home of the microwave. Right? So they both have their own unique value. It's the same with us. Just because every other realtor in the state of California is using this same form and has all of these same value propositions does not diminish your value. We'll have a class on creating your value proposition, and you can work on that. But be thinking about that. It's okay that it's the same as someone else. It doesn't diminish who you are and what you bring. Both things can be true. Yes?
Yes.
Tell me where I'm going wrong. If you got it, say aye.
Aye.
Oh, we got to get the energy back. If you got it, say aye. Aye. There we go. Come on, it's only 2:30.
Yeah, that's the thing.
All right. 2 is directed by or agreed with the buyer, ordering reports and investigations and scheduling and attending meetings, appointments. Upon request, providing buyer with a list of professionals who perform the services described in the attached buyer's investigation advisory, provided the broker has a referral list for such requested services. Do you have a requested list?
No.
Maybe that's something we should be working on. No? I'm shaking my head yes, but nobody's following me. By the way, when you're talking to your clients and you want them to do something, are you doing this?
Yes.
Yes. It's okay. No, we don't want to do that. Language of sales is what that's called. Right? Upon request, assisting the buyer with the financing process by making referrals to lenders known to the broker and assisting buyer in obtaining loan pre-qualification to the extent the broker can do so without acting as a mortgage loan broker. If the property contains residential property with 1 or 4 dwelling units, the broker will conduct a reasonably competent and diligent visual inspection of the places that are accessible. This is where the rule comes in that you have to physically walk every property that you sell, because you're required to fill out an agent visual inspection disclosure. Well, okay, that's not necessarily all the way true. There's no law that says you have to fill out an AVID.
And can't any agent in the office fill out your AVID for you?
What'd you say?
Can't another agent in the office fill out your AVID for you?
They can. They can. Right? Because it's the same brokerage. So I'm on vacation. So I send Jason to my property to do my AVID for me and get it disclosed to the buyer. That's okay. He's licensed. He's under the same broker. Buyer shall deliver or communicate to buyer any disclosures, material information received by and personal possession of or personally known to the individual signing for the broker during the representation period. The broker services are performed in compliance with federal, state, and local anti-discrimination laws. 9, buyer obligations, good faith. This is one you may have to highlight and circle and star. Buyer agrees to a timely view and consider property selected by the broker, negotiate in good faith to acquire a property, and buyer further agrees to act in good faith toward the completion of any contract that they enter into for a property. B, financial and personal information within the time specified in 2G1. The buyer shall provide relevant personal and financial information, including but not limited to proof of funds needed to complete the purchase of the property and satisfy the obligation to pay the broker, and a pre-approval or pre-qual letter to the broker to assure buyer's ability to acquire the property. If the buyer fails to provide such information, or if the buyer does not qualify financially to acquire the property, the broker may cancel this agreement in writing. Pretty straightforward. Reasonable care on C, reasonable care and other professional assistance. The buyer is obligated and agrees to read all the documents that are provided to them. Buyer agrees, that's going to help us. That's gonna help us. You didn't tell me to get a survey. Oh yeah? You signed the buyer inspection advisory. I didn't see it. Oh yeah? Right here in the BRBC it says that you agree to read it. Oh.
Yeah, that's right.
Buyer agrees to seek desired assistance from appropriate professionals selected by the broker, such as those referenced in the attached. Buyer is advised to read the attached buyer's investigation in advisory. There's one. There it is. You said you were going to read it. D, reports and investigations. The buyer agrees to pay for reports, investigations, and meetings arranged by the broker on behalf of the buyer. Buyer material issues. For any property for which the buyer has made an offer or considering making an offer, the buyer shall notify or update the broker in writing of any material issue to the buyer for that property, such as but not limited to the buyer requests for information or concerns regarding any subject of interest or importance to the buyer, which is the form BMI. If the buyer does not provide such information for a property for which the buyer makes an offer, that property shall be deemed to satisfy the buyer's material considerations, notwithstanding any preferences. Right? You understand what that means in English or Spanish? It means that unless they tell you otherwise up front, they accept it. Barring the home inspection, right? But like, let's say that there's always been a 10-foot section of the fence missing. The day that you showed them the property, that 10-foot section of fence is missing, and there's no cap on the chimney, and they saw it the day they saw the property. They wrote an offer, and they didn't ask for any of that to be fixed, and they didn't even tell you about it. They cared about it. They acknowledged that they saw it. Oh, yeah, my brother-in-law can fix that. Now, the home inspection comes out, and it says that there's a piece of fence missing, and the cap is missing. They can't actually lay claim because it was already there. Does that make sense? They knew it. What they should have done is said, I have a problem with the fence and the cap. I don't know how we're going to address it yet, but I got a problem with it.
This was this way all along.
This was this way all along. Now we're just spelling it out. Because before, how many disputes have we had over that kind of stuff? All the time we've had disputes. And the seller always would say, it was there when they saw the house. And they're right. Incorrect or incomplete information is going to be obvious. Attorney fees. By the way, in the state of California, in case you guys didn't know this, did you know that in order to have attorney fees paid for by the losing party in any lawsuit, it has to be written in the agreement that you have with the other party? So if I don't have an agreement with Blanca, a written agreement, or I do have a written agreement and it's not in there, and I sue her and I win, she's not obligated to pay for my attorney fee and legal expenses. But if it's in the document, now I can claim for it and I can be awarded those two. That's why you have an attorney fee clause in your contract. If you sue them and you win, then they also could be responsible and awarded your legal fees as well. Management approval. This just means that any agreement that you guys get into, I can ex-nay it for within 5 days. So you can use that to your advantage. If a client turns out to be a us, right? Then you can say, Drew, don't approve this. I want out. Right? And then we can cancel it. Mediation. You guys know what mediation is, yes? Okay. Legal authorized signer, the entire agreement. This means there's no other agreements. Everything is contained within this document. 15 we already went over. That's the exclusive, right? We talked about that from page 1. On page 1, if we check the exclusive box, now we have to bring our clients to 15. Why didn't they just put this right after that?
They want them to read the entire thing. Will they do it?
I'm not a liar. I'm a lawyer, so I don't know. 16, confirmation of compensation. This is where you put in the money for the compensation. If it's an entity, then you're going to check the entity box. And then, of course, everybody's going to sign. And then, of course, you have the buyer investigation advisory that we've had all along. You have the broker compensation advisory. So this is, we already talked about that, right? It's 2 pages to tell everybody that it's disclosure. You have the PRBS, which we already talked about that, and you know what that is. Gives you permission. The Consumer Privacy Act advisory, you know what that is. Okay, so the only other thing that I want to go over is this document here. The seller payment to buyer's broker. Do you have that?
No.
No?
Well,
I have it.
seller payment to buyer.
Seller payment to buyer broker.
Got it. Yes.
Okay, so this is it's a made part of the purchase agreement. So you're going to use this document when the seller is going to pay the buyer broker. You're going to use this when the seller is going to pay the buyer broker, and you're going to accompany this with your offer. It's pretty straightforward. The buyer has entered into a written agreement to compensate the buyer's broker 3% of the purchase price. As of the date of the seller payment for buyer's broker document is signed by the buyer and pursuant to the MLS. As of the date of the seller payment for buyer's broker document is signed by the buyer and pursuant to the MLS, or, and then you check the box and put in an amount, seller broker has agreed to pay the buyer broker 3% of the purchase price. Seller agrees to pay the buyer's broker 3% of the purchase price, or whatever. Okay. Buyer authorizes escrow holder upon, so that permission for the escrow holder to pay the broker. Number 5, if buyer's broker is the same as the seller's broker, then the amount specified in the MLS shall apply in the manner specified in 2 and 3. Additionally, if the broker has agreed in listening to him to reduce the amount of compensation, the amount of compensation specified will still apply.
So Drew, so this has to come with the offer as well as checking the compensation field on the RPA?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
But I have a feeling this is going to go away.
Yeah, it's too much, the same.
It's redundant if you're gonna.
Because it
put
refers to
on
the
RPA.
MLS.
Right.
It refers to the MLS. So I think this is probably going to actually be gone. Okay. I think I'm going to go over the open house stuff. Well, no, let's talk about the open house stuff. We have time. Yeah, we have 20 minutes. All right. Let's start with the property visit and open house advisory. So this advisory is basically telling the person who's walking through the doors that that there's a risk for visiting and previewing the property. This is where things are going to get a little complicated, is for open houses, okay? So you've got a couple of different documents as it relates to open houses. This first one is the advisory, telling the visitor, right? I'm not 100% sure on strategy around this yet, but my initial thought is I'm probably not going to bring this out. Maybe I would, now that I'm sort of thinking about it. Because what do I want to ultimately do?
Get them to sign it.
I want to get them to sign what?
I just want them to sign in and then contact info.
Okay, I want them to sign in.
You want to capture their information.
I want to capture their information, and I ultimately want them to sign what?
The BRBC.
The BRBC. I ultimately want them as a client. There might be people that come in and say they've already signed a BRBC.
Right.
You know, with me.
So now I'm going to want to make sure that they are advised of the risks, right? And then, so that's where this document could come in. Not required, but it could come in. The one that I like better is the open house visitor non-agency. This is basically a sign-in sheet. And in this sign-in sheet, it's disclosing to the person who's coming through the door that I'm here working on behalf of the seller. So anything that I tell you is not to be construed as advice. It is to be construed as information on behalf of my seller. So I owe you nothing. I'm here to give you information. In the state of California, you have two types of agency. You have expressed and implied. Yes?
Yes.
What's expressed?
Right?
Written. And implied is? Assumed, right? Like we're in a conversation and I've given you some advice and now there's implied agency. This is removing implied agency. In fact, I really hope that they get rid of that in the state of California.
Yeah.
In today's climate, it needs to go away.
Tell them.
We need to have customers and clients like they do in Idaho. In Idaho, I can walk up to somebody, I can even write an offer for them and not represent them. They can be a customer all the way through. Or they can sign a document with me making them my client. Wouldn't that be easier? Because it really like sets the stage. You're only my customer. I don't owe you anything, but I'll sell you the house. Right? Or you can be my client and I can owe a fiduciary obligation to you. Doesn't that sound better? So that's basically what this is doing, is it's saying, I don't owe you anything. I'm here working on behalf of my seller. Now what if, in that really rare and weird situation, when you might be doing an open house on a listing that's not yours?
Never happened.
That never happens. Happens all the time. By the way, can you do an open house on a RE/MAX listing?
No.
Yes.
Yes.
I've done it.
I want.
Absolutely good.
Yes.
Both cannot do one.
No. So, officially,
No.
there's no law, and there's no ethical boundary being crossed, and you're technically allowed to. Our policy at KWAV Ridgecrest is no. And there's a reason for that. And the reason is, number one, our E&O insurance will drop us if they find out, because there's no coverage. Because of the following reason. It gives the wrong impression to the public. The public comes in thinking that they're going to a RE/MAX listing, and they believe that the person they're going to be speaking with is a RE/MAX agent. But the agent that's in front of them is a Keller Williams agent. So the RE/MAX agent, the Keller Williams agent does something offensive, let's just say. And so now the client goes into Kenny's office. That person at that open house, oh, that wasn't us, that was Keller Williams. Now, what have we done? RE/MAX is in trouble for misrepresenting, and we're in trouble for misrepresenting, right? Because we've misled the public. Just like on your Facebook pages, you have to have that you work at Keller Williams and your license number. By the way, if you don't have your license number on your Facebook page, we can get dinged for that. You need to have your license number and Keller Williams on your Facebook pages. Many of you do not, that's why I'm bringing it up. Because it's all about misleading. The DRE does not want us to mislead the public.
That goes with all the officers too, or just them?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let's say a RE/MAX agent is doing an open house for us at Keller Williams. Come in, and this is way more likely, right? They come in and the RE/MAX agent misbehaves. That's way more likely to happen, right? Keller Williams agents would never misbehave. But it's possible that the RE/MAX agent might, right? Okay, I'm making fun. That's not real. This is being recorded and it's not real. I'm joking. So if the RE/MAX agent misbehaves in our listing, and then the customer comes waltzing through our doors, I want to see your broker. And they start yelling at me because of an open house and what dirty, rotten scoundrel they did at the open house. And I say, that wasn't us. Well, it's your sign in the front yard. It's your 15 signs or whatever, right? Do you see what I'm saying? It's misleading the public, no matter how it goes, no matter which way it goes. So this is telling the visitor that I don't represent you as the visitor, that I can show you around, and it's on behalf of the seller. Now, what if you are doing the open house for somebody else in the office? So it's Tiffany's listing and Kenny's doing the open house for Tiffany. Kenny cannot speak unless they sign this document. They have to sign it.
I hope it goes away.
Otherwise, the only information that Kenny can provide is whatever's on the flyer. He has to give them the flyer, and if they say, now how many bedrooms? Flyer says it's 4 bedrooms. Because he's not representing the seller, so he can't say that. But if they don't sign it, and you are the listing agent, then you can still say stuff on behalf of the seller. You just don't have anything in writing to protect you against implied agency.
And they're not allowed to go inside if they don't sign?
That'd be up to you.
Can you say it's required? But it's
Yeah, you could. And in fact, I mean, it's a stretch to say it's required because technically it isn't, but you could say the seller requires it because the state of California says that we're really not allowed to talk unless you sign this. So, seller says they want to abide by the law. So if you're going to come in, you do have to sign it. And then I can answer all your questions. It's forcing them to sign it. That's a good thing.
And then this, you could put that's the agent, that'll be my name, or that'll be something that I have to put in?
Yeah, the agent will
The
be
agent for the actual listing.
right. It'll be the agent who's doing the open house.
What if the buyer comes with an agent?
Then you just let them in and let them do their thing.
Agent doesn't have to sign in anything. Okay.
No.
Business card.
Yeah, give you the business card, whatever. You know.
I think this should go away. I mean, it's.
What about this, then? So you don't have to sign this either? The risk of visiting? I mean, this is the important one, not this?
Yeah, it's not required.
Okay,
It's
so-
not required.
so I gotta print this out and open up.
Yeah, yeah. And, you know, I mean, I think that that's actually, this is actually kind of a good thing, because it makes them sign in. And now you don't have to have that really awkward conversation in the beginning of, you know, the seller asks for security purposes that you sign in, please. And then they come over and they don't take it seriously, and they put, you know, Mickey Mouse and 123@gmail.com or whatever, right? And you don't have the right information. Now, this is legal. This is more legal. And by the way, it's very easy to say, this with a smile. You know, all the settlements that happen within AR. So now that they've kicked our butts in line, gotta sign in. Want to make sure that we're doing things by the rules, right? That's what you wanted. You wanted the rules. Put it back in their face, right? All right, any other questions, comments, concerns? Anything that I can do? Huh?
This is available now, right?
It's available now. All this stuff is available now. I printed it directly from the library.
I have a question before.
I don't.
Tomorrow.
No, that'd be more like, you're gonna pay me, in different steps. You're gonna pay you in steps? Yeah, then you would use a schedule. Just attach a schedule of what it looks like. Yeah, that works good. Yes.
Are we gonna go over tomorrow, how you submitting an offer to ask for compensation? Is that something?
Probably won't get to that tomorrow during the meeting. We're gonna do the listing agreement, and then next week we'll hit the RPA.
I have a question.
Yes, Philemon?
Yeah, in case like, let's say, you know, there's the temporary your buyer representation. Would that be like a good idea to have it on the open house?
Yeah,
Okay.
I would. Be ready to go.
Okay, but just the temporary one or the actual buyer representation?
I'd have both of them, but I would probably, depending on how well I'm doing with them, you know, I might rather than going for the gold, I might just do the temporary one to at least establish something so that I can build rapport. Remember how we used to have the rule, one and done? I'll show them one house before we really have so that I can use that one showing to show my value and get them to sign with me, right? Okay, so you can't really do that anymore. So the temporary one is a way that you can facilitate that.
Okay.
Have them sign on, you can go show them a house, and then you can show your value, and then lead them into signing the real BRBC.
All right, sounds good, thank you.
You're welcome.
I don't know if I missed it, but is there any certain forms that like any current listings that we have right now?
Yes, so current listings right now, you're going to use the form DM-LA. And that's an addendum that attaches to your listing agreement. That DM-LA or DN. It's M. Yeah, M. DM-LA. And that is an addendum that attaches itself to the listing agreement that discloses to the seller all these changes in the new document.
That's in the package right now. When you pull up the
RLA package.
It's just if you had one previously, they should sign it.
You should sign it, yeah. And I believe that the new listing agreement is available, so you could start using the new listing agreement now.
Yeah, it's in there.
The new listings that we do, we get already disclosed.
Yeah, you can do it. I would, in fact, I would.
You're gonna get a lot of phone calls from Drew.
You know what? Call me. That's why we're going to be doing these all the time.
Yeah.
Yes, Cecilia, you can add the $199 and the TC fee to the purchase agreement.
So we did a listing with the new form,
Okay?
and for some reason my TC doesn't think we need to do the DMLA, and I think we do.
The DMLA is with the old listing agreement before July 24th.
Okay.
If you're using the listing agreement as of July 24th to now, you don't need the DMLA because the listing agreement is all that information that they need.
Okay, good, perfect.
So, yeah, so just to clarify too, so if I have a listing agreement I sign in January, then I need to do that.
You need to do the DMLA. To the DMLA. That's right. That's right.
Thank you so much.
You are welcome.
Will you have a few minutes afterwards to check?
Yes, I will check that. Cecilia, the CBC will be eliminated, yes. If we represent the buyer and seller on the same property and get paid by those separately, are we being charged a $199 fee? That does not change. That goes unchanged. Guest. The $199 goes unchanged. Whatever the policy is now is still today. Harry, so does that mean on new listings we are just listing the percentage to cover us? Yes. And we're going to go over the listing agreement tomorrow during the team meeting. You're welcome. Thank you, everybody. And I hope I got all your questions. Thanks, guys. Awesome. Bye-bye. All right.
So this is the current, right? This is 21?
So that's the agency disclosure. That's not been changed.
Okay.
But
So
you can see this has been
okay.
changed.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome. I don't know. I can't.
Until what time are you going to be?
You want to talk about it now? Okay, so we'll go into my office. So let me check Clara's thing, and then you and I can just go into my office. Is that okay? Okay. It's Garrett's office.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm in Garrett's office. It's not my office. It's Garrett's office.